In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, January 26th, here on the Korean Peninsula. The U.S. economy expands at an annual rate of 3.3% in the final quarter of last year and ends 2023 with a 2.5% growth, defying earlier projections that rising interest rates would push the economy into recession. On the security front, U.S. authorities believe North Korea may adopt a lethal military action against South Korea in the near future should the regime remain on its path of rampant provocation and bellicose rhetoric. And here in South Korea, ruling party lawmaker Bae Hyun-jin is assaulted by a teenage boy with a palm-sized rock on Thursday at a building in Seoul, less than a month following a stabbing attack in Busan against opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung. The U.S. economy fared remarkably better than widely forecast last year, with consumer prices also slowing further in the final quarter. Our Ising-jae has the numbers.
According to the U.S. Commerce Department on Thursday, the U.S. economy grew at a faster pace than expected, growing at a 3.3% annualized rate in the fourth quarter of last year. The figure beat the Wall Street consensus estimate of a 2% gain. The U.S. economy for all of 2023 grew at a 2.5% annualized pace, also well ahead of the Wall Street outlook and better than the 1.9% increase in 2022. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis said that the increase in real GDP reflected increases in consumer spending, exports, state and local government spending, non-residential fixed investment, federal government spending, private inventory investment, and residential fixed investment. The latest data from the Commerce Department also showed that U.S. consumer prices have been easing. Consumer prices in the fourth quarter of last year rose at a 1.7% annual rate, down from 2.6% in the third quarter. Core inflation came in at a 2% annual rate. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank decided on Thursday to freeze all three key interest rates for the third straight time after its last hike in September, keeping the benchmark deposit facility rate at 4%. The interest rate on the main refinancing operations and the interest rates on the marginal lending facility were also kept at a 4.50% and 4.75% respectively. ECB President Christine Lagarde said the ECB board believed any talk of cutting rates was premature, given the uncertain economic outlook and risk of wage growth pushing inflation higher in the first quarter. Ising-jae, Arirang News.
And global oil prices rallied on Thursday, rising by 3% to hit their highest levels since November. The West Texas Intermediate ended trade at $77.36 a barrel, while Brent crude settled at $82.43 per barrel. Now, Thursday's rally is being linked to a number of geopolitical risk factors, including rampant violence in the Middle East and that between Ukraine and Russia, as well as recent disruption in U.S. oil production amid brutal winter conditions. Also, soaring oil prices are not the only repercussions of the current geopolitical tensions. The world's distribution of goods via sea routes is being challenged by hostilities in the Middle East as well. Our trade correspondent Moon Hae-ryan reports.
Global shipping rates have jumped as hundreds of ships have begun to take a detour in order to avoid attacks from Houthi forces in the Red Sea. The shipping route through the Suez Canal is the shortest pathway connecting Asia with Europe and the east coast of the United States and handles roughly 12% of the world's annual global trade. But now ships are taking an alternative path around Africa, and according to the International Monetary Fund, maritime traffic in the Suez Canal was down by more than a third so far in 2024 than the same period last year.
If you look at the travel time, which is in some respect now double, triple the time to the Eastern Med. Normally it's 10 days through the canal. Now it is 18 days longer.
With longer journeys, shipping rates and insurance premiums are rising. According to UK-based Drury shipping consultants, the average worldwide cost of shipping a 40-foot container has more than doubled in the past month. Tesla and Volvo suspended operations at some of their European plants due to shortages of parts from Asia, while retailers such as Swedish furniture giant IKEA warned of possible delays in stock. With these rising costs, financial services company JP Chase predicted that worldwide consumer prices could rise 0.7% in the first half of the year and contribute to worsening inflation. An expert says that firms will need to monitor the situation closely and respond quickly.
Changes will vary greatly depending on how much faster shipping companies deploy their ships and respond by changing network strategies again for this increased journey time.
Governments are responding to different aspects of the situation in various ways. The US has formed a naval coalition with the likes of Britain and France to counter threats directly in the Red Sea. South Korea, on the other hand, is focusing on rising shipping rates. During an emergency meeting to discuss exports on Thursday, the country's trade ministry unveiled its plans to implement support for firms in stages, depending on how shipping rates rise. In particular, it will be supporting SMEs by increasing designated freight space and funding 3.6 billion Korean won, or just under $2.7 million for shared warehouses in Europe and the US. 문혜련, Arirang News.
LG Electronics posted record annual sales in 2023 for the third year in a row. Sales last year amounted to some 84 trillion won, roughly $63 billion, up 0.9% on year. Company officials linked the performance to greater demand for home appliances and automotive parts, which reportedly accounted for almost half of total sales. Yet despite the strong sales in terms of operating profits, LG noted an on-year decline of 0.1% at around $2.6 billion. The head of the World Bank believes Korea can contribute tangibly to the economic efforts of its less privileged counterparts by sharing its experience and expertise in technology. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
A very strong economy. That's how President Jaap van Zweden of the World Bank sees South Korea as a contributor to emerging economies, he said during a press conference in Seoul on Thursday. He added the Korean companies have deep expertise in various sectors from shipbuilding to chips and automobiles.
Korea has gone from, in 50 to 60 years, from a situation where it was devastated and had to come out from deep poverty, many challenges, foreign exchange issues, and come from that to a country that is in the top few in the world, and now is a bastion of knowledge and capability for development in the rest of the world.
South Korea is supporting developing countries in their digital transformation by teaming up with the World Bank to share the country's digital policies and innovations, including AI, cybersecurity, and its digital platform government. On Thursday, while observing a simulation of South Korea's digital twin technology, a virtual geospatial model of the real world used for urban planning and management, President Banga suggested that it could be a valuable tool for reconstruction in Ukraine and Palestine, which is expected to take place in the near future. He added that technologies including AI are South Korea's strengths as a contributor.
Third, it has AI and the sensor technology. He was just looking at examples of that, because that's basically sensor technology and geospatial mapping combined with AI that is producing what you just saw on the screen a little while ago. It has that ability. When you put all that together, it's very useful for what the world needs.
He added that it is highly beneficial for developing countries because advances in fields such as agriculture can be made through AI and advanced technologies. Meanwhile, regarding the country's low birth rate issue, President Banga pointed out the gender pay gap as one of the reasons.
We need growing populations, as you know well, in Korea, to be able to keep and sustain the future. If you don't ensure that women are compensated adequately for the burden they bear for enabling that population to grow, it leads to complexity.
Earlier in the day, President Banga met with Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok following a meeting with President Yoon Suk-yeol the previous day to expand the partnership between the World Bank and South Korea and foster it for the next few years. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
There has been an ominous warning of a potential North Korean offensive against South Korea in the near future. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung covers this outlook and more.
U.S. officials say North Korea could take some form of lethal military action against South Korea in the coming months. Quoting White House Deputy National Security Advisor Jonathan Feiner, who spoke at an Asia Society forum on Thursday, the New York Times reported that the regime had, quote, chosen to continue going down a very negative path. Daniel Russell, a former senior official at the U.S. State Department, also said that preparation should be made for the possibility of shocking kinetic action, with the leader seemingly intent on a strike that goes beyond North Korea's shelling of the South's Yeonpyeong Island in 2010. According to a report released by the conservative U.S. think tank, the Heritage Foundation, the regime could make use of nuclear weapons more easily during a crisis. It said the regime's increasing rate and diversity of missile launches shows that Pyongyang is making significant progress toward implementing a more capable and flexible nuclear strategy. The warning comes after Pyongyang recently shifted to a policy of open hostility. The North has been more aggressive with provocations this month, with the recent firing of cruise missiles in the West Sea and the test launch of what it claimed to be a new solid-fuel hypersonic intermediate-range missile. It also fired hundreds of artillery shells off its western coast earlier in the month, prompting South Korean islanders to evacuate. The North Korean leader also called for constitutional amendments to officially label South Korea as its most hostile state. However, despite Pyongyang's hardline approach, experts say there appear to be no concrete signs that North Korea is gearing up for a major war. A U.S. official said North Korea's alleged weapons delivery to Russia, which prevents the regime from stockpiling arms, could be a sign that Kim is not planning for a major military operation. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a delegation from Beijing's foreign ministry is in Pyongyang. According to North Korea's state-run Nodong Shinmun on this Friday, the Chinese officials, led by Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs Sun Weidong, arrived in Pyongyang the day prior. Separately, speaking to members of the media here in Seoul, the Unification Ministry said the trip is most likely an extension of diplomatic initiatives that began in Beijing last month. Now, this year reportedly marks the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between North Korea and China. Former U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Song Kim will be honored with the 2024 New American Hero Award. The award, granted by the American Korean Friendship Society since the year 2000, applauds the contributions of Korean Americans to the broader U.S. community. Song Kim served as the U.S. delegate to the six-party talks back in 2008, before his station here in South Korea as U.S. ambassador from 2011 to 2014. He also served in the same capacity in the Philippines and over in Indonesia. The award ceremony will take place on March 15th in Atlanta, Georgia. Meanwhile, the political arena here in the country is reeling in the aftermath of yet another assault targeting a lawmaker within a span of a month. Our Shin Se-byuk has details.
People Power Party lawmaker Bae Hyun-jin was struck on the head with a rock by an assailant on Thursday evening in Seoul. According to Bae's office, the 41-year-old was immediately taken to a hospital and remains in a stable condition. Bae, a former television news anchor, briefly served as then-President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's spokesperson in 2022. The suspect, who said he is 15 years old, was arrested by police at the site. The motive behind the attack is not yet known. Early on Friday, the assailant was placed in emergency hospital care, accompanied by a guardian. This is an action that can be taken by individuals believed to have mental health issues and pose a risk to themselves or others. After the incident, the presidential office released a statement calling for a thorough investigation and wishing Bae a speedy recovery. Political opponents were also united in criticizing the attack and called for proper response measures.
Crime and terrorism aren't issues of political sides or party lines. This is absolutely intolerable. All of us must work together on preventative measures.
The Democratic Party of Korea firmly condemns political terrorism and calls for a swift, thorough investigation by the authorities.
The DP leader Lee Jae-myung also posted on Facebook saying no act of, quote, political terrorism should be tolerated, and also wished Bae a speedy recovery. The news has sent shockwaves through the political community as the attack comes some 3 weeks after the opposition DP leader was stabbed in the neck during a visit to Busan. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Thursday ordered thorough investigations into the case and called on authorities to focus on ensuring the safety of key figures, including lawmakers, to prevent similar crimes ahead of the upcoming April general elections. The police formed a dedicated protection team for key political figures, including party leaders, following the assault on the DP leader earlier this month. This is a departure from the usual protocol, where personal security teams are typically deployed for such individuals only during the official campaign period starting 14 days before an election. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the football field, Team Korea stumbled into the knockout phase of the Asian Football Confederation Asian Cup after drawing 3-3 with Malaysia on Thursday in Qatar. Midfielder Chung Woo-young's 21st minute header placed the Taeguk Warriors in an early lead, but Malaysia replied with 2 second-half goals. Lee Gang-in scored his 3rd goal of the tournament in the 83rd minute to level the match, and captain Son Heung-min converted a penalty 4 minutes into added time for the 3-2 lead, but again, Malaysia grabbed an equalizer in the final seconds. The draw means the Taeguk Warriors finished second in Group E and face Saudi Arabia in the round of 16. That match kicks off next Tuesday at 7 p.m. local time. The Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra has welcomed a new music director who pledges to ensure that the journey to making music will be more beautiful than heaven itself. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
Less than a month into his role as the music director of the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra, Jaap van Zweden says he's already feeling at home. His connection with Korea goes back decades.
My big violin teacher was a Korean man, Hyo Kang, who is still a very respected teacher at the Juilliard School. And I have very close contact still with him. But on stage, I've been working for many years with Korean artists.
Before coming to Korea, the Dutch conductor led the New York and Hong Kong Philharmonic orchestras. Under his baton, the Hong Kong Philharmonic became the first Asian orchestra to be named Gramophone's Orchestra of the Year. Celebrating his new chapter in Korea, Seoul Philharmonic is holding a concert featuring pianist Im Yoon-chan, the winner of the 2022 Van Cliburn International Piano Competition. It's been only a few days since they started rehearsing together, but they've already found a rhythm.
I can smell, I can feel, I can see also that the history of this man is hard-working, serious musician. And that is always very touching and moving.
The 2-day concert will provide a glimpse into the maestro's vision for the Seoul Philharmonic. Performing Mahler's Symphony No. 1 aligns with his goal of performing and recording all of Mahler's symphonies within his 5-year term.
And I think it will make the orchestra, it will put the orchestra in an extra layer of color, emotions, strength in the future.
For him, a top-tier orchestra consistently delivers excellence, and his aim is clear: to shape the Seoul Philharmonic into just that.
I think that maybe the road to heaven is maybe more beautiful than heaven itself. So being on the road with the orchestra is the big joy for me. And I hope also for the players in the orchestra.
And he hopes the audience feels the same.
We truly enjoy every concert that we play on stage. And so the enjoyment and the intensity, that is what we want to give the public.
Starting with this week's concert, Van Zweden will be opening up a new era with the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look. At the latest news in the world now. In Russia, a court in St. Petersburg sentenced a woman to 27 years in jail on Thursday for the killing of a pro-war blogger last April. 26-year-old Daria Trapova was charged with a terrorist act carried out by an organized group causing intentional death and the illegal possession of explosive devices by an organized group, as well as for forging documents. The victim, 40-year-old pro-war blogger Vladlen Tatarsky, was killed by a statuette bomb in a cafe handed to him by Trapova on April 2nd last year. 52 others were injured in the explosion. Russian investigators accuse Ukraine of being behind the attack. Trapova claimed that she was following orders from a Ukrainian man known as Gestalt, saying that she wanted to work in Ukraine as a journalist in opposition to the Russo-Ukrainian war. Trapova's lawyer commented that the 27-year jail term is one of the most severe sentences against a woman in Russia's modern justice history. In Austria, a court ruling on Thursday may allow the infamous sex offender Josef Fritzl to be moved from psychiatric detention to a regular prison. The 88-year-old Austrian Fritzl held his own daughter captive in a cellar for 24 years, raping her thousands of times, and fathered 7 children with her before being arrested in April 2008. Thursday's decision by the Austrian court stipulates that Fritzl attends regular psychotherapy and undergoes psychiatric evaluations during a 10-year probation period at the regular prison. Fritzl is currently being held in a high-security institution for mentally disturbed offenders in Stein prison. Under Austrian law, prisoners can apply for conditional release after serving 15 years, meaning Fritzl may be released under parole this year. Josef Fritzl, named the Monster of Amstetten, was sentenced to life in prison after he locked up his then 18-year-old daughter in a soundproof basement of his house in 1984 and kept her captive for 24 years. Out of the 7 children who his daughter gave birth to from rape, 1 died. The United Kingdom is set to return a selection of Ghanaian royal regalia 150 years after they were looted from Ghana. Some 32 artifacts stolen from an Asante king in the 19th century will be handed over on a long-term loan to the Mania Palace Museum in Kumasi, with 17 pieces from the Victoria and Albert Museum and 15 from the British Museum confirmed. Director of the V&A, Tristram Hunt, said a gold peace pipe and gold discs worn by royal officials are the equivalent of Britain's crown jewels. While controversy remains over the ownership of the looted artifacts, some museums claim that they are banned by law from permanently returning items in their collections to origin countries. In Myanmar, a military junta government court put the house of former Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi up for auction on Thursday. The house is where Aung San Suu Kyi spent 15 years under house arrest. Suu Kyi, who has been in prison since the military overthrew her government in 2021, has been involved in a legal dispute with her brother over the ownership of the lakeside villa. The villa is expected to go under the hammer on March 20th, with a starting bid of around $90 million. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We had another freezing start to the day with cold alerts across Korea, but alerts should be downgraded or even lifted as the day goes on, as we are slowly warming up. And the much-awaited above-freezing daytime high greets us this afternoon in the capital after 5 days. Meanwhile, athletes in Gangwon-do should also notice a slight rise in the highs today, although Pyeongchang and Hwaseong will stay below freezing all day today. Highs are 2 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon, Seoul topping out at 3 degrees, Daegu and Gwangju at 7 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Meanwhile, Gyeongsang-do and nearby areas are under a dry advisory. Bright skies are in store nationwide, but Jeju will be rather cloudy all day today. We'll have temperatures near the norms over the weekend under sunny skies in most parts of Korea, so please enjoy the weather conditions. Looking ahead, next week looks more promising with temperatures hovering slightly above seasonal averages. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That ends Friday's afternoon newscast. We have our panel session coming up next, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.